Welcome back to our Building the International Space Station series for our modeling all of the. I need to come up with a good name for this. We'll figure out a good name for this series, but this is going to be the real world series here in Kerbal Space Program. So just moving around so we can launch during our launch window. Now I should have done this a little bit better, so most of our launches would happen during the day instead of at night, but that's all right. Hopefully YouTube doesn't make our videos too dark. And here we go, get all of our symbology up, and we will have launch in just a second. Get a good angle, and launch. Launch and lift off. This trusty rocket here that we've been launching with has been really useful during the construction of the ISS, and especially that upper stage. That upper stage is really a workhorse here. So let's talk about what we're launching today. Today we are launching the Harmony module, also known as Node 2. It's, in quotations, the utility hub of the International Space Station. This hub contains 4 racks that provide electrical power plus electronic data and act as a central processing point for several other components via its 6 common berthing mechanisms. Of course, that's the like the international docking system that they use, so that anybody who wants to go to the space station can dock with any of the modules and make it work. It is currently on the space station, and where we're going to be docking it to is the quote-unquote forward end of the Destiny Laboratory. It was moved there on November 14th of 2007. It was temporarily placed on the port side of the Unity node, but it was moved to the permanent location on November 14th of 2007, like I mentioned before. When it was launched, Harmony added 2,666 cubic feet to the station's living volume, which increased at the time of about 20%. The station went from 15,000 cubic feet to 17,666 cubic feet after the successful installation of Harmony. NASA, after this launch, called it to be the U.S. core complete. So the U.S. core of the station is the Destiny Laboratory, the Harmony module, and Node 1, which we've talked about in the previous video the Unity node, when we launched that. So we had a good first stage shutdown, separation, and second stage ignition. Just working on raising our apoapsis up. We're going to aim again for about 150,000 kilometers, like with all the launches, but we'll see exactly where we end up today. Attached to Node 2 is the forwardmost docking port, which is typically where they like to dock the space shuttles. It gave it lots of maneuvering room around the station. And also, that happens to be the docking port where the Crew Dragon docked to not too recently ago. That was the first time that docking port was used since the shuttle's retirement in 2011. Also attached to node number 2 is the Columbus Orbital Facility, which is the European Space Agency's largest contribution to the space station. It has some observation and some science equipment on the outside of that orbital facility. That would be on the port side of this module. On the zenith side of the module, or the quote-unquote upside of the module, is the docking port. Is also a docking port for visiting shuttles or other visiting vessels. And on the nadir side, or the quote-unquote downside of Node 2, we're also able to dock with visiting vessels there, typically where the crew or the Dragon capsule, the cargo Dragon capsule docks. On the starboard side of Node 2 is attached the Japanese experiment module, or pressurized module, which is JEM. and we'll talk about GEM when we launch it because there's a couple of things attached to it. So here we go, doing some fancy time warp. We're just getting up to our apoapsis so that we can perform a burn and circularize our orbit. There we separate our fairing and we are able to see Harmony for the first time. You can see those docking ports on around it there. And we just ditched our upper stage in an orbit where it will burn back up on this orbit. And we're going to continue to burn our upper stage to raise our periapsis. Now, you can do the math if you want to, which we have been doing for the last little bit and will be doing, where we can figure out how much this module weighs. So when we get back to our information screen, which we'll be at in just a minute, we'll do some simple math. So the upper stage itself alone weighs about 5 tons. It's a little bit more than 5 tons, but we're just going to call it 5 tons for sake of simplicity. So as soon as I figure this out, okay, so we have an end mass of 7.4 tons, and we know that the upper stage itself weighs 5 tons. So this module alone weighs about 2.4 tons, and it's not the heaviest lift that the heaviest launch that we will be doing to get all of this built. In a little bit, we're going to start launching more than one module at a time, which gets pretty fun. So here we go with that inclination correction, and that gray box on the left of the screen just below the spacecraft is that second stage which we dropped in the lower orbit. And we finished up that burn there, so let's get us our intercept. Oh, also, I forgot to mention what actually launched this module. So the Harmony module was launched on October 23rd, 2007 aboard STS-120. It was just launched to build the station. STS-120, of course, launched from Kennedy Space Center. The mission is also referred to ISS-10A. Was flown on the Space Shuttle Discovery, and it was the 23rd Space Shuttle mission to the International Space Station. And the total mission duration was 15 days, so about half a month. During that time, the Space Shuttle completed 238 orbits. This Space Shuttle did launch with a crew of 7. Also, this STS mission, STS-120, launched from Kennedy Space Center Pad 39A, which just so happens to be the same launch pad that SpaceX is now using, also the launch pad that we used to get to the moon on. So That launch pad is a very historic launch pad for American spaceflight. And here we go, approaching our home and transfer. So we'll start that burn in about T minus 6 seconds, give or take a couple seconds. And there we go, ignition. We'll burn up, as you saw, about 78 meters per second delta V, but we have plenty left over. This upper stage is such a workhorse, especially the redesign. Did a little bit of a redesign on this upper stage, giving us more RCS, and so we are able to do bigger missions. And now we'll time warp again, get up to that intercept. There we are. And we'll begin our braking burn, bringing down our relative velocity to as close to 0 meters a second that we can. Started this braking burn just a little bit late, but that's alright, we'll still make it. And switch over and start burning towards our target. And now we'll flip around retrograde relative to our target. And you'll notice here in the next couple of missions that as we reach 2.2 kilometers, there is a pause as the game loads. That's because the game does not render all vehicles, otherwise it would be impossible to keep track of all those orbits, and we would need a supercomputer in order to do all of those orbital calculations for every vessel. Instead, it renders vehicles only 2.2 kilometers away from the vehicle that you're currently controlling, which is why you have to go to the tracking center in order to change vessels that are more than 2.2 kilometers away, because they're not yet rendered in the game. The orbits are saved, and they're just not active, if you will. Now, that being said, they will crash into planets, and if they have a periapsis low enough, they'll burn up in atmospheres and whatnot, which is nice because that way we don't have to follow all of our upper stages all the way to the ground. We're going to get a cool sunrise over the edge of the Earth here in just a minute, and we'll be able to get the International Space Station in full light up to the components that we launched from last time. And we can see node 1, we can see the US lab there, and again this is going to be docking to the quote-unquote front of the US lab. So we're on the wrong side of the station, which is alright. We'll just switch over to docking mode with our RCS, and we will begin to translate across to the correct side of the station. Big sprawling solar panels are pretty impressive as they start to come around to sunrise. We can see the sun lighting up the station now, and there it is, hitting us now. And we need to start maneuvering. We're currently traveling away from the station. We'll start pulsing our OMS, our orbital maneuvering system. And now we need to get oriented correctly. There we go. quick save, just in case. Just trying to get us nice and lined up, coming in. And there we go. We have docked node 2. So the US core is now complete. Now we are going to have a problem here with node 1 because it is blocked by those darn radiators. So we will have to come up with a solution for that problem, but for the time being, that's all right. Let's go ahead and decouple, and we need to deorbit our stage. So we'll perform a maneuver avoidance, and we'll point retrograde to our orbit, and we'll fire that main engine for the last time. Goodbye, station. Goodbye, node 2. And as soon as our periapsis drops low enough that we will crash, we will be out of here, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Remember to tune in tomorrow for more construction.